welcome to Thrashcast episode 29. Tonight I'm Ken, so I'm hosting in the hosting chair. And before we continue, I'll usher in my two partners in crime, Bill and Jimmy. How you both doing tonight, guys?
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. So tonight we have an interesting album. So my two co-hosts are not as familiar with the album as I am, but we will be talking about Defiance, and that is Beyond Recognition from 1992. But before we do our album dive and everything and all the questions, let's just do a little bit of housekeeping for everyone. So, as you know, you can find our podcast here on YouTube at Horror Metal Sound. So it's it's Kenji2468. You can just basically Google Horror Metal Sounds. It'll come up, Thrashcast. You can also find us at our website, which is www.horrormetalsounds.com. And you can find us on Spotify, an audio version of the podcast. And we've now started posting on Rumble, which is sort of like YouTube in a lot of ways. So if you want to go there as well, you can check us out there. So, all right. So before we get into anything interesting here about the album itself, we'll do our usual topic about news and what's spinning. And tonight, Jim, why don't you lead us off on our opening topic?
Oh, okay. So for a news item, just a quick news item, Nervosa has canceled their gig in Orlando due to an incoming tropical storm. So anyways, it's kind of weird though. And I don't really know why. Well, I guess they're doing it for money, but they've kind of asked, and I liked their last album. It was pretty good. I like Nervosa, but they kind of went to social media looking for fans to donate. And I'm all for that, but I don't know. I find it kind of weird. They've got, I think they go to Lafayette next, I think, on their tour. So their tour isn't ending or just starting. They're missing a date. And I get it's probably going to cost them some money and travel and stuff, but kind of weird. And they're doing, they're doing a contest if you buy their CD or anything off their site. Or you donate $10. For every $10 donate, you can get a prize package. But I don't know. I just find it kind of odd. I mean, I guess traveling margins must be that thin to have to resort to that. I don't know. It's just kind of weird, I guess.
Because the same announcement, Jim, came out by that's of the tour with Lich King.
Yeah,
and they put the same announcement out, but they didn't do any of that.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Oh,
I just find it I bought the CD, not right now. I bought it when it came out. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm good. But anyways, it's just kind of, I don't know. It's just okay, how far are we going to take this? But anyways.
I'll be covering that
pay
show.
For dinner and gas to the next time.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll be covering that show when they're in Toronto.
Wicked.
October 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in a small club, right, Ken? So maybe that's why. This tour is probably all small, tiny clubs, and they're coming from Brazil, right?
True. That's true.
Yeah, Lich King, they're American, right? So
they're not well known either, though, Billy.
No, yeah, exactly, yeah.
No one really knows them, so.
Although I've seen them rip up Philadelphia with some decent crowds. But yeah, I guess Nervosa having to pay for the visas and all that probably adds up, right?
Well, it's probably, I mean, they're doing it, I would assume if they've got a good business personnel, they're probably doing it by margin, and they're missing, they have to they're not going to get paid for their performance. So I guess they're probably somewhat razor thin. It just kind of struck me weird. I don't know. It's just,
me too.
I was reading it and I was like, okay, so I mean, I'm willing to get them to come here to Halifax. They want to sell a $30 ticket. I will pay $200 to see them. So if they want to come here, I'm willing, if their tickets are $30, $50, I'm willing to add on $150 to see these bands come here. So I'm all good for paying extra to get them to come here, but I don't know about sending them somewhere else. But anyways, I just saw it. It was kind of okay. But anyways, what I'm spinning, got a lot of new stuff this week, but this is new to me. I picked up the latest Hell Ripper CD.
Woo!
And I mean, right. Warlocks, Grim, and Withered Hags. Man, I got to be honest. I think, Billy, was this on your top list of 2022?
Yeah,
I thought so. So I had remembered it from when you did it, and then I just kind of came up on my feed, and I decided to purchase it. What an amazing album! So, and I mean, just so cool. Wicked album. I absolutely love it. I also picked up this band, Oceans of Slumber. Kind of an interesting band. They're kind of a bit of an acquired taste. They're more like they've got a really cool lead singer. Her name is Cami. She's got really good pipes. There's a really cool song on it called Wish, which is a little bit slower. There's it's like almost 90% clean vocals with maybe 10% harsh vocals. And it's got like everything I like, a little bit of touch of death, a little bit of doom. There's not really much thrashiness on it, which kind of, but I like doom metal a lot. This kind of borders and death metal a lot, so it kind of fills in there. But really good album. I like that. Kind of a little different than what I normally listen to. And then I picked this one up. Mog's Motel.
Yeah. I saw your post for that.
Yeah, which is actually, it's kind of, it's from Phil Mogg from UFO, is a solo album. So I listened to it before I bought it, and it totally is a wicked album. It's more kind of, I don't know, more of a traditional to hard rock, heavy rock album, metal maybe, but it's really good. And it's got a little bit of a UFO groove to some of it, so I like UFO, so this was kind of cool, and kind of a surprise album for me to kind of get into, but no, I really like it. It's really cool, and that's all I have.
It's funny, when you posted that, the first thing that came to mind was Jeff Beck, his Guitar Shop from 1989. I was like, this looks like, I thought it was for a second there, and I realized, it's not Jeff Beck.
It looks like it. Yeah.
I was like, whoa, cool. But that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's like, more of a traditional hard rock, I would give it. Metal, yes. I mean, I'm not going to split hairs here, but it's just a really good album. I think it's got like 13 tracks on it, one being a bonus track, and it's not bad. It's definitely probably going to make my top 30. I want to do a top 30 list of albums just so I can fit all my ones in there, but this will definitely probably make that, I would say.
You're going to need a top 50, Jim.
I know. It's like, it's crazy. It's like, and I've got some really obscure stuff that I'm loving. Like, I've got the new, I just got so much stuff on order too. I hope it comes in on time. I mean, I'm still waiting for my new Flotsam to come in.
Yeah. So, hopefully it comes in soon.
Yeah. Well, that's what I got, guys.
Okay, cool. How about you, Billy?
So a couple of things, and Jim, kind of cool with the you brought up Hell Ripper, so I'm hopeful that we're gonna get. I got to see them in Europe a couple times, but they were just announced at Hell's Heroes in Texas. Wow. So that they'll be coming to North America in what's that? So that'll be March. So I can't see them coming all the way here and doing one show.
Right.
So, hopefully we'll get to see them. I don't know if obviously they probably won't get back to him.
No.
But they may get out to Toronto or Montreal. But we'll see. They haven't announced that. All that's announced is the festival so far. But cool. Okay. Cool. So yeah, just on news things, a couple quick things. A band that I really like here from Toronto, Canada, Raider. So thrash death metal. They posted that they're deep into the new album.
Nice.
Nice.
So a follow up to the excellent Trial by Chaos. So they're saying early 2005 we should get a new Raider record.
Cool.
So that'll be cool. And then me being the vinyl guy, a decent announcement from Nuclear Blast. I mean, it depends on your love of Exodus and what singing fast. But they're announcing some reissues for Rob Duke's era Exodus. So they're doing Exhibit B, The Human Condition.
Nice.
These will all be November 22nd. So in about a month. The Atrocity exhibition, I guess that's Exhibit A, and Shovel-Headed Kill Machine.
Oh,
that's a good one.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Like they're nice, like splatter vinyl and like some good packaging.
Okay.
That's out on Nuclear Blast, so keep an eye out for that. And one sort, I don't know if it's so much a news item, but one thing that I'm still amazed about is that Wacken Open Air is still not sold out.
Wow.
Wow.
So
Ooh.
like, I mean, for at least I'd say for the last 10 years that I can remember, it's always sold out within 5 hours to 24 hours. And so here we are months and months, right? Tickets went on sale early August, and it's still not sold out. So one is kind of weird, like, but two, I guess the good thing is if anybody is planning a trip, it's not like every other single year where it's sold out. So
Yeah.
last update they gave is they sold like 68,000 of the 85,000 tickets, and that was August. So I don't know, here we are starting to leave September and still nothing. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know, like maybe it's the lineup, like, but there's still a lot of good bands that have been announced. Some I don't like, but that's always the way a festival is. So I don't know, but if it was ever on your bucket list, that's still very doable. In terms of what's spinning, two albums I've been playing this week. We've probably mentioned these guys in some form over time. But
Yes.
Carter Warp Zone, this is their second album.
Nice.
I was able to get their first and second on vinyl recently, so that's cool. This is from 2000, but of course that's with Chewy from that's Chewy's band from Voivod with him and his brother. So it's thrash, but it's also death for sure. So this didn't make my top 10 list for the end of the night just because it was a little deathy, but it's also incredibly technical. And then the second thing I've been playing quite a bit, I haven't broke this out in a while. Portalage, the self-titled EP. So this is really cool, right? They're from France. People know of Gojira being from France, but these guys are the OG. And probably most famous because this was Chuck Schuldner's favorite band. Like he said, this EP influenced what he did with Death. And
wow.
I mean, it's certainly not death metal, I wouldn't say, but some of the technical nature within the music, I think, is what he was referring to. But this was the first couple albums was his some of his favorite musicians, and he was always very vocal about his love for Sortilage. So, and all that stuff has been reissued by High Roller Records in Germany. So amazing packaging. Anyone who wants to get the old albums, they're all readily available.
Cool.
That's what I had.
It's funny, Billy. I thought you were going to bring up Corrosive because you're listening to Out on the weekend.
Well, it didn't come yet. Yeah. So yeah, I'll bring that. Hopefully, I'll have them next week.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So I have a couple of things that are going on. First of all, in the news, I just saw that Dave Lombardo posted his new song called "In Shadows" for his side project, which is Venomorous, with that Canadian singer Paula Lombardo. I don't know if they're related or not, but I heard the song today. I actually gave it a spin. It was all right. It's like kind of, I don't know, more like gothic, kind of maybe gothic metal kind of style of hymn. Maybe, I don't know. It sounded all right. So that was released today, and I'm assuming there's another album coming out with that project that he's got going. And then he also did a recent interview where he was asked about Slayer, since Slayer did the Riot Fest last week, and then all those videos have been posted on YouTube now, so you can check out that show. But he was asked if he would come back to Slayer, and he's like, "Yeah, I'd come back to Slayer," but he goes, "I know that's not going to happen." So I thought that was kind of interesting. So he still, I don't know, maybe he still feels like there's a fire in the belly to come back to Slayer, but I thought his response was interesting to say the least. And then the next big news item I also heard today, and the song was actually released today on YouTube, is March of the Unheard is the name of the album from Halo Effect. That is basically effectively what's left of the original In Flames bands without Jasper's there, but with Michael Staine from Dark Tranquillity as the lead vocalist. So they did release a video called Detonate. That's pretty cool. You can watch that. I think that was posted today on YouTube. The album is actually coming out on January 25th of 2025.
And sorry, who's that, Ken? I missed the band.
Halo Effect.
Halo Effect.
Halo, yeah. I heard that too. I love that first album.
Yeah. So did I. So did I. It's like Dark Tranquility. I mean, you get a great vocalist, and you pretty much get like all of well, pretty much not quite, but almost all the original members of In Flames before they made all those changes, which is kind of cool. The song's actually pretty. Give the song a spin. It's got a lot of interesting, like Colony era riffs. I got that kind of vibe from it. I thought it was pretty good. So hopefully the album is good. Well, at least I'm hoping. So, and kind of spinning just old stuff because we're doing, tonight with our podcast. I was listening to the first couple albums to Skin Lab.
Oh, nice.
This is, Steve Esquivel's second band, or the band he started after the dissolution of Defiance. I love the first two albums. I bring the first two albums up because they're the most thrashiest. It's more like groove thrash in the vein of Machine Head. The other later albums tend to go more into a nu metal sound, but the first two albums I really, really dig. But so that's kind of what I was spinning just recently, just in prep for tonight. But
cool.
Okay, so we got all our news and spinning items out of the way. We'll just before I ask you guys a couple questions about the band, I'm just going to bring up just a couple quick points. They are from California, Oakland, California. They formed in 1985, Defiance. I guess you can consider them part of the second wave of Bay Area thrash. They did release Product of Society in 1989, and that was actually produced by Jeff Waters from Annihilator. He produced their first album. They were never really happy with that first album that he produced. They did a second album called Void Terra Firma in 1990. And then, of course, tonight we're going to be talking about Beyond Recognition, which came out in 1992, the more, I guess, technical or progressive of all the three albums they did. And so we're going to be talking about that tonight. Now, before we get into the album itself, I had some questions I wanted to ask you guys, and they're pretty simple. The band doesn't really have a great cachet, so I don't think they're one of the better known bands in the field for thrash. But so the first question I wanted to ask was, what do you guys think of Steve Esquivel, or is it Steve or Stev Esquivel? He is the vocalist. Did you guys? I know a lot of people compare him to Testament, Chuck Billy. You guys think that? What do you think, Jim?
So full disclosure, I've never heard this album, and I've only heard of the band I haven't listened to anything by them. So this was really cool for me because I kind of the first timer here, kind of going through their catalog. First thing I thought was I thought of some of the tracks sound like Chuck Billy, could be even a mix of Hetfield and Mike Muir on some of them. But yeah, especially on the back half of the album, I get a really big Testament vibe. I also get some Megadeth vibe. He's got some sounds like even more of not as high and maybe not as squeaky as Mustaine, but it's like a melding of all my favorite thrash singers. I was totally. I'm going to start searching for their albums this week. So it was really, really cool. And I find there's a big meld of all my favorite thrash singers. Every song I listen to, I was like, oh man, this sounds like this guy, or this sounds, so cool.
Okay, cool. And Billy, what do you think?
Yeah, so I was very familiar with the first two albums, bought them when they first came out. So the Chuck Billy reference, very appropriate. I mean, everyone, if you were looking at reviews back in 89 and 90 and 91 on the albums, everyone, made the Chuck Billy comparison. I think it was fair. He definitely had some components. Like, he wasn't an exact duplicate, but
no.
You could definitely hear some. Like, I think on this third album, I hear less of him. I think he's really shifting his vocal style, in my opinion, quite a bit on this album. But like, I guess it was good and bad for the band, right? Having that out there. I mean, you could do, on the plus side, you could do a lot worse than sounding like one of the best thrash singers of all time. So that was a good thing. But I guess, Defiance always kind of got, Ken, to your point, the sort of second wave. But in terms of success, you would have to say they were 3, 4, or 5 wave, if that was even possible. They just didn't have the success of the second wave band. So there was just another thing that people knocked, right? Like saying, oh, they're not original. And yeah, the vocalist sounds like Chuck. So I don't know, but I really enjoy the first 2 albums. I like some of the technical nature of this third album. So yeah, but yeah, I think it's a fair comparison. And the earlier you go, the more fair it is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys? I know you both heard the first 2 albums. What do you think of the original singer? Do you guys like that guy? Because I think he's all right.
Yeah.
He's
Billy,
good.
what do you think? Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, he's good. He's not bad. I liked the first album. I thought it was really raw. I probably liked the first album. There was a definite progression there between, like, I listened to all their albums digitally, and I find there's definitely a progression as things went on. But I really liked their first album. I like bands like that, their first album is like really basic and raw, and then you can see the progression going on. It would be great probably if it maybe got a remix or maybe was cleaned up a bit. That would be really cool. And I think I mean, I don't know who, I know what your next question is going to be coming about new material and stuff, but they I think it was I liked him, but I like this singer. I think he's great, and he's just like, again, he's like a meld of all my favorite thrash vocalists.
Yeah, for me, Void Terra Firma was my favorite.
Albums, and that's the first Steve Esquivel album, that's his first, where he actually joined the band. So yeah, that album's pretty good too. I didn't really give them both a spin this weekend. I was listening to some of the later stuff, but I like Steve Esquivel. I'm a fan. I mean, I obviously like Skin Lab, so for me, I like where he went from there to, like, from the first project to the later project. I mean, obviously, what you're saying, Jim, with the I guess the kind of the style of vocals, you're not going to really. He kind of changed a lot of that when he went into Skin Lab, where there was a lot of more growly kind of vocals, and then he'll switch to clean and go back to growly. But I guess that was more the style of when it came to, like, maybe more the mid-90s groove thrash.
Well, let me ask you this. What would you pick? Like, I'm familiar with some Skin Labs, so that's where I made the kind of compare. Like, I saw where it went. Like, what would be a good album? Like, I don't own any of their albums. What would be like a good album to start with?
The first 2. So you'd want to go this one here, which is Bound, Gagged, and Blindfolded.
Okay. That's
pretty solid. And then the second album, Disembody the New Flesh.
Okay, that one I've seen, and that one is in my shopping cart right now. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good album. The first 2 albums, I'll describe them as more kind of groove thrash. So they tend to be like early Machine Head.
Mm-hmm.
They started then switching more into new metal by album number 3.
Yep.
And then the last couple albums have all been kind of more like new metal. I see on, like, Encyclopedia Metallica, a lot of people don't like them. The ratings are like 30%, 40%, which is all right. I mean, I guess everyone has their taste and style, what they think.
I love the name of the band, Skin Lab.
That's what I like. I love the name of the band too. I love Skin Lab. I think it's a great name. It's so unusual for for a band of, but maybe it's like a perfect sounding band for the mid-90s. I don't know.
True.
That's something what I thought. Well, that'll lead into the Skin Lab question. The band. So what's interesting about Defiance is that they actually kind of splintered off into two different camps, because Steb was dealing with, like, I guess, drug addiction during the time when they were even recording the album, their last Beyond Recognition. So at one point he physically left the band, And then they had to basically bring in another musician, another vocalist, but it's never been named. So I don't know who that vocalist was. But apparently Stev came back and they were like, okay, we're going to finish the album with Stev. So the other, whoever that other vocalist was never named. So I don't know if that person actually like sang any of the songs, which is kind of interesting. But Stev, though, he it's kind of funny because then they put this album out, they break up not long after that when the album came out, and then it splintered off into two different camps. So the remaining band members were working with David White from Heathen to form a band called Inner Threshold, which apparently was more like groove, a kind of groove thrash, which I can't envision David singing that kind of style of music, but that's what it was. And then Inner Threshold went into, they changed the name to a band called Under, which they did release an album in 2020. Are you guys familiar with any of that kind of music, or have you heard it at all? Or because I couldn't find much on it either.
No,
I looked
it
up.
Not Inner Wit. Like, I mean, Inner Threat, like Threshold. I know there's a band called Threshold,
right,
very popular, and there's a band called Inner Wish, which is like Christian metal, which is pretty cool, but it's not that. So yeah, I followed the tree like this week, and I came to Under, and I came to that one album as well, but I couldn't find anything to listen to it.
Yeah, same here. I was looking too, and I was like, oh, I can't find it. Couldn't find nothing on it, but.
So I don't have anything to say on Inner Threshold, but I wasn't a fan. You guys probably won't be surprised of Skin Lab, though. I wasn't a fan of Skinhead, so it wasn't my thing.
That's all right. It's not everyone's taste. I mean, I don't know. Some people like it and some don't. I like it. I just like the aggression of it. I think they're better than Machine Head, personally speaking. I'll take Skin Lab any day over the week.
And then it really got out of hand in the later albums. Like, it was just like, oh no, I didn't like it at all.
Yeah.
Total, I mean, like new metalcore, like just like, oh yeah, I wasn't a fan at all.
Yeah, I can understand. It's not like everyone's cup of tea. All right, so we'll go into the other question I wanted to ask you guys was when the band broke up twice. So basically they were gone by 95. They did return as a band in 2005 and stayed as a band until 2010. So no, sorry, 2000 and I think it's 12. In that time, they did record an album, and it was called The Prophecy. You guys have heard it. Billy, what do you think of that?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned it earlier. Like, I lost track of the band at Void Terra Firma. So I know you mentioned this album, so I gave it 2 full plays this week. So I'm kind of mixed. Like, musically, I like it a lot. Like, it's very thrashy. Like, the third album that we're going to be talking about today is a little bit more technical. So I like that too. But like, I thought this was the Prophecy was a little more thrashy and a little more intense. But like, the vocals I thought were very like metalcore style. So the vocals threw me off, but musically I liked it. So it wasn't bad. But I only had 2 plays, so like I certainly won't claim to be an expert on it, but I did give it a thorough chance, and so I guess my views are kind of mixed.
Yeah, that's understood because I pretty much agree with you about the vocals. I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's like he sort of got into the whole Skin Lab thing, and then he sort of kind of sings in a very similar style.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work entirely, but the music is good.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about the music, though, is that it's with one guitarist because it's only Jim Adams. They originally had Doug Harrington on the earlier albums, but he passed away in 2006. So they went with just basically a bass, one bassist, and one guitarist. So, but it's got a really crunchy sound. I like it. What about you, Jim?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was a return to their first album. Like, musically, I thought it was more like Product of Society. And I definitely would buy it. I mean, I like it. And you would mention, are they, like, I'm just curious, are they still together? Because I'd like to get a new album. I mean, are they going to put it, or are they not together?
Well, they reformed in 2019. Now, word is they are working on new material. That's what I'm hearing. So this is the 3rd time that they're back as a group. So Steve's back in the band. Jim's back in the band. I think it's the original. I think they replaced the drummer, but the bass is there. So they've made a couple small changes, but it's still technically Jim Adams instead of Espinal, as far as I know. And word is they are working on a new album. Now they're signed to Candlelight Records.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming there's something coming down the pipe.
Well, it would be nice, like, if if they could excuse me, do a bit of a re-release on their catalog. I mean, I think if they come out with a new album, maybe not the latest album because it's 2009 or whatever, but like going back, I think it would be a sin not to maybe at least do a re-release, and because they are, I mean, searching for the CDs online are tricky. So,
Yeah. I mean, I had the Metal Mine. The CDs I have is the Metal Mine ones that were done back in, like, I think 2005.
Right.
These are pretty old. They're pretty good. I like them both.
Yeah.
They're pretty solid. But yeah, I think going forward, if you're putting out new music, you should at least reissue your previous 3 albums.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not too sure what the plan is. I just read that they were working on new material. And so the other little question I'll ask is, do you guys think they should put out a new album?
Yes.
What do you think, Billy? Billy?
I don't know. Like, it depends on the purpose of it, right? Like, from what I could tell, the 3rd and 4th albums were not successful in terms of sales.
Right.
So the band was going in a direction the fans weren't following them on those albums. So, and then they have other bands, right? Like, so, like if you're going to come back to Defiance and do what you did in Skin Lab in Defiance, and what's the purpose? Just keep doing it in Skin Lab. So it makes sense. They probably have more, like Steb probably has more cachet with Skin Lab being more known in this modern age than Defiance, probably, other than us diehard thrash fans. But so yeah, I don't know. I mean, whatever they do. But like, I don't know. I don't know that I see a purpose unless they're. If you're going to bring the name back, you may as well go back and do an old style thrash album. Because if it's going to sound like Skin Lab, just keep going in Skin Lab.
It's true.
Yeah.
I don't quite get it, right? Because it's not like Defiance was like a monster band, right? You're gonna
no.
So like you're almost taking maybe a step backwards from Skin Lab in terms of today's popularity.
That's a good point. That's a really, really good point. And you like the album, Jim? What do you think?
Yeah, I liked it. I agreed. Billy's made some good points there. I think if you're going to genre jump a little bit here, stick to let's go back to the basics and come out with everybody hates it when bands go backwards, but I think this band needs to really buckle down, bring out a thrash album. I could see them playing at Wacken, with a thrash release coming up. And and then re-releasing. I mean, their 3rd album, the album we're discussing, it was produced by I can't remember, Bob Beaton, who and it was the production on it was really good for 92. I thought it was way miles ahead of the first 2. So production wise, but I agree with Billy. If you're going to make some sort of maybe a Skin Lab, maybe kind of meld it with a little bit of thrash, I'd rather it just stop, or they go full on the thrash avenue with it and keep their projects maybe a bit separate.
Yeah, that would make sense. I don't know. The only member that went from Defiance to Skin Lab is Stev.
Yeah.
But I guess he's a big part with the vocal sound. So that's where everyone identifies it, right?
Right.
But
on top of that too, I mean, I think there's definitely, if they're going to come out with an album, now's the time. I mean, thrash, heavy metal is huge right now, and thrash metal, death metal is huge right now. So if they come out with, I could see them on tour with Heathen, or a 4 or 5 of those maybe 2nd or 3rd wave Californian thrash bands. Why not? I mean, I could definitely see them, honing their, getting in there and doing it. I mean, you see Hyrax and Forbidden touring all over Europe, that they're just keep going with it. And I mean, it's definitely a market, especially a European market for it. I think now's the time they should do it if they're gonna.
Yeah, it's funny. I put that question in there only because of what we were talking about with violence a few weeks back.
Yeah.
And how, like, it's only Sean Killian, one person, the original member in the band.
You know what? Billy makes a good point. The violence has that name. So, like, they play Whackin' and everybody's like, yeah. And, you know, it doesn't matter, like, what they were going to bring out or don't bring out or anything. It's just Defiance doesn't have that name stake. That's like, you know, like, I watched, I mean, Billy's been at Whack and he can speak to it. I'm watching clips on YouTube and everybody's got violence backpacks or back patches and you see it everywhere. And I'm like, man, like, you know, they're just living off of what they did. And here you have, you know, I think these guys would definitely have to benefit from going back to the roots and really coming out with and they could be a huge thrash release next year or a year from there, whatever.
Yeah, that's true. You have any other thoughts on this, Billy, before we move on?
No, yeah, like I couldn't get a good sense. Like I think I read that they were talking about doing the new album before COVID hit. So
Yeah.
like I don't know if like they've got updates like now in 2024. Like everything I found where they talked about a new album is already 5 years old.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything new either. I was doing.
Yeah.
I was looking.
I don't know,
Googling
5 years. Like, we may never get anything.
You're right. You're right. It's very, very true. Maybe like violence, there's no need to put out another album. I don't know. It could be that. But well, even Skinland hasn't recorded a new album since 2019 either.
It's been a while, yeah.
It's been a while for them too. But
I mean, I guess with COVID, right? People lost 2 years, so 5 years it maybe got lost, right? So, I don't know. I guess time will tell.
That's true. Oh, just one little thing I wanted to clear up because we were talking about this before in the past. This album, the album cover, this is not Ed Repka. It's actually Jim Warren is the album cover artist.
Oh, okay.
It looks like Ed Repka, and I know if you go to
Wikipedia is wrong. It says Ed Repka.
Yes. Yeah. Wikipedia is wrong. It's because I even double checked to look on the inside. I looked up the credits, and yeah, it's Jim Warren is the cover artist. Now, Jim's actually a very famous artist for a lot of reasons because he won a Grammy for doing a Bob Seger cover way back when. He's got all kinds of accolades from Disney. He's been around. He did the Alice Cooper Raise Your Fist and Yell album cover. Which I love that cover.
Yeah.
He did that. And he's very, very well known. Nowadays he's like a very gifted fine artist. So he's got shows all across the world. But I just think it's funny that or was Ed Repka, but it's like, I don't think it's Ed Repka. And it's very similar style, but just a misconception in that regards. All right, so we'll dive into the album dissection now. The first track is "The Killing Floor," and Billy, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, so this is one of the better songs I think on the album. Like, I mean, maybe just general, like musically, I like the album. I guess there's three sort of broad things I find with the album. Musically, it's a little more technical. You said that, Ken, so that's cool. There's a lot of good intricate bass work that you can hear in the mix, which I always like. And so that's kind of the first theme. The second theme is like, so Stev's vocals, like I like it when he gets into the thrashy style vocals, but he's got quite the range on this album. He's all over the place, right? And so some things don't work as well for me, like style wise, but that's personal taste. And then third, there's a couple songs I think they've got a few too many ideas going on in the songs, and they don't necessarily all click back together. And so those are them, but those are sort of the because I don't want to have to say that on every but that doesn't apply to the first track so much. But yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. Like it actually opens with a fairly lengthy guitar solo, which is kind of cool. There's some good chugging guitar riffs. I like that. And I can hear, right? Like, as I said, like I lost track after Void Terra Firma. So when you said we're doing this album, this is the first song I hear, I hear Defiance, right? Like I wasn't like, total with this song, I wasn't like thrown back from it. Like I like the vocals. There's some great aggressive vocal hooks on the track, so that's cool. Like you would find in Avoid Terra Firma. But there's that slow vocal section in the song that I don't really think fits. Like and I don't know, it just that's going to be a common theme in some of the songs here, where I think he's just changing it up a bit too much, and it doesn't always work. But the guitar solos are strong, in this song, and that's going to be consistent. I like the chorus, so yeah, I think to me this is one of the stronger songs on the album.
It's cool. And Jim, what do you think of the opening song?
Yeah, so this would be my first song I've heard from this band. So like I totally, as soon as I heard it, I was like an instant fan. And I agree with Billy's synopsis. There's a couple of tracks on here where 92, so like there's some that I kind of get the feeling he's singing some of like maybe some parts through like a megaphone in that, and I'm not a big fan of that as the album, like towards the back half of the album. But this song is killer. Heavy guitar intro that just goes on. It's and this album's full of groove. This song has a heavy groove to it, but not as more melodically grooving and more, I guess, technically grooving as the back end of the album kind of takes it. And I find his vocals on this is a Hetfield and Muir mix. It's got James Hetfield sound in some parts of it, and then Mike Muir Suicidal Tendencies sound in other parts of it. And it could be that the groove is coming through, that I'm thinking of Infectious Grooves a bit, which is, their albums are are great, and they're really, really groove metal. And I mean, even Suicidal to some degree has that. So I'm getting that. It's not at all like a crossover sound at all. But this has a really good thrash vibe to it, and this is one of my favorite songs on the album. So the album for me starts off just awesome.
Yeah, it is a good song. They lyrically, for me, I kind of put them in the forbidden camp. There's a lot of social issues, a lot of personal issues. They don't want to write about like Dungeons and Dragons and war and all that stuff. They tend to stay away from those tropes. And then I also, for me, I find that there is a kind of a comparison to Forbidden. And Forbidden, probably a little bit of violence. They're comparable. Heathen's the other band that I bring up that I find them very closely linked to in a lot of ways, just in a way with some of the tempo changes. But I do agree with what Billy was saying, that like the vocals, Stev, he is a little bit uncontrolled here. He's a little over the map. Like he gets these slow parts, and then he's got these really aggressive parts, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it's too much in one song. So if you cut that down, it would sound better. But I think this is a good opening song because it's technically like an anti-war song where they're talking and trying to describe the whole idea of people being misled by power and how you can become a pawn in war. So I think it's pointy in that regards, but it's a pretty strong. I think it's a good song to start us off on an album. For me, I think the opening part's the best part. That little guitar riff flourish at the beginning is so great. You just get that blast in your head. It's like, whoa, okay. But the album. I find that as we're gonna go along, some of the songs are a little bit mixed. I like some of it, but then parts of it I don't like. But we'll figure that out. Now, track 2, Step Back. What do you think of that song, Jim? We'll stay on you for this.
Love it. I mean, this just for me, I'm thinking at this point, man, this is going to be a kick-ass total thrash album, because this song, it has that cool cymbal intro, and it's got a heavy sound to it. But this has a Megadeth. This sounds like it could have been an extra track off of Rust in Peace for Megadeth. I find he's got he sounds like Mustaine in this song, and it's just, I like it. I mean, I like the song, and it's one of my, like, I don't know how many top ones I have on here, but this is definitely one of my favorites. So it's like the first 2 songs for me were a 1-2 punch. And, and as Billy said, things get a little weirder, probably maybe around 6, definitely 8. But but the album for me is just smoking along, and I think I stopped after this one, and then I went and listened to the first album because I wanted to hear, like, okay, I wanted to start comparing it to their back catalog. So I listened to the whole first album, and then as I was going through this, I started picking at the second album, and then realized that it kind of was a different progression that went on. But no, Step Back's a wicked song. I love it.
Cool. And Billy, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a good song, I think, overall. I run into the same problem, right? There's a few parts here where Stev slows down, and I just don't like his vocals in that range. And this song is going to start a trend, right? Like these spoken word parts in almost every single deck. And at one point, so you could tell me, Ken, like, are they doing a Queensryche Operation Mindcrime where there's a narration going on, or it's just overdoing this idea?
No, I kind of think it's just they're overdoing it.
Yeah, because every song is going to start to do it now, right? But yeah, so that's the downside. But like, this has a good thrashy intro. The second half is very strong musically, like in my opinion, right? Excellent bass work. There's interesting drum fills through the song. There's like a great lead at 3 minutes, like closer to 4 minutes. One thing that sort of stands, I don't know if you guys find this, like, and it's not really a negative thing so much, but I find the drums almost sound thin. Or like, I mean, the drums can sound heavy in the song, but like the production of the drums sound a bit funny to me throughout the album. Like, sounds a bit thin or digital. I mean, I don't think digital back here, or maybe it was, but something sounds off, right? Like, I'm sure it's not a drum machine, but it doesn't sound like natural drums. But the drums are great. Like, I love what the drummer's doing, but that's the only thing I find on the songs. There's something funny in the production of the drums.
Well, you know what's funny? I was reading online that a lot of people find that for the production, it's a little thin for the guitars even. Some people find the guitars kind of thin, and I could see in spots that might be the case.
But sometimes the drums will just like when they're doing like double bass, it'll just like kick through the song, and it's like heavy and loud. Like, you wouldn't say it sounds thin, but it's like some of the slower parts, or where it's not as deep in the mix, where it has that thin sound. I don't know.
Yeah, I see what I actually see what you're saying. I could see that too. I didn't really pick it out as much, but I could see, thinking about it now upon reflection, you're right. It could be, I don't know.
And maybe it's funny because I'm looking through my notes of all the songs, and the only time I mentioned the drums was this song with the cymbal intro. I don't think I've written like, oh, this is a wicked drums, and the drums sound great, don't get me wrong, but I think, now that I'm thinking about it, I like the production on this album, but I definitely find the drums kind of maybe get a little lost in there, even though you can hear them. It's just, there's not any sort of, I'm not sure how to even describe it. It's weird.
But they do like doing intros with drums. Two songs where the cymbals will intro, and there's two songs that almost sound like a mini drum solo to open the song.
Which is a bit odd.
Yeah,
you're right. It's a little bit odd. I like this song too. I agree with what Jim said. Like, it's got a really heavy tempo, and it's got that nice chug, and it's pretty solid all the way through. For me though, I'm starting to get Forbidden vibes, not so much in the music, but just in the way that they structured the lyrics and the way they sang them, because they're saying "step back" and it's in the chorus and stuff. So I kind of see some comparisons to Forbidden a little bit, but that's not a surprise because I guess these bands all coming from the same area and stuff, they're gonna always like pick up stuff from what other bands are doing. But I like this song. I think I like the 140 mark when his vocals, like, I just love his vocal style right at that point. And it's strong, and it has some really good lyrics. For me, the lyrics are pretty solid in this album. And I like this one too, because it's very all about thought. It's all about, and it's just great. I like it for that reason, but I think your mileage may vary depending on your taste for this kind of music. Okay, so for track 3, this is Perfect Nothing. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a part 2 of the second song, Step Back. It still kind of follows in that Megadeth kind of guitar vibe, not really the vocals end of it on this song, but more of a thrashier guitar vibe. It starts off very ballad, kind of ballady vocal like, until about 53, around 50 seconds, it starts to hit a super heavy vibe. Out of the first 3 songs, probably my least favorite of the first 3, but still I like it. It's a good song, and it just kind of keeps that that heavy momentum going. But the first little part of it is just that ballad vocal kind of thing that starts. It changes. It kind of, I don't know. It would have been cool for song 3 to be kind of definitely a better thrasher. If it was a full out thrasher, I mean, it kind of was unneeded, and the song is pretty heavy. So I don't really think.
Yeah.
And you know, Stev, is it Stev, the lead singer? Stev.
Stev, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a great voice, but I find when he's doing the thrash part of it, he's really good. I don't think it's really needed for that slow kind of intro-y part thing. So, but still a good song.
Yeah. And you, Billy?
Yeah, so this one I'm not. This would fall into the category of too many ideas that don't come together. I just don't think the songwriting's it clicks. Like you get a bit of everything, right? Some heavy groove metal. You get some like metal, some thrashy parts. It opens ballad like. I definitely don't like Stev's vocals in that ballad section at all. I don't think he does a good job there. Here we got the cymbal intro that sort of starts the song. The guitars are really good, right? There's some good shredding solos in here. The spoken word, of course, is back here again, and it's going to be back on them all. And so like there's some good melodic guitar work in here, but for me it's the vocal approach, and then the song doesn't come back together. They're trying to do too many things in this one song, even though it's 5 minutes, so it's one of the longer ones. It just doesn't click for me, this one.
Okay, and I see what you're saying. In the last minute they bring the chug back. I guess to kind of tie it all back in, but it doesn't. But it's still kind of, I don't know. You're right. The song is kind of mixed. It's kind of okay. I think sometimes I find that when they're trying to write like really serious lyrics, because here they're all talking about the idea of like turmoil, inner turmoil, and and how negative emotions how you feed off your negative emotions. So I don't know. Like that opening bit was weird, where it's kind of like unearthly. If that's the best way to describe it, I don't know. But I wasn't a fan of it either. It's like he was singing far away, and it's like, what? I didn't quite understand the point of that. A little bit odd, but I don't know. I maybe they're just trying so many things, to be honest.
I just don't think the placement of that song is super great. I think like song 4 would be a better pick for song 3, just to kind of keep that heavy kind of vibe going.
Yep, I would agree. And so, Jim, since you brought it up, track 4, No Compromise. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a good heavy track. I mean, and I do have a drum thing in there. It's track 7, actually, the drum intro. So like I'm looking through my notes, but yeah, I like, this heavy track, 30 seconds in, it goes into a really cool chug, and it just kind of keeps that momentum going of more of a thrash song. And I like his vocals on this song. They're really, really good. I think it's one of the better songs on the album. And I think probably 3 would have fit better, maybe around 8-ish with what's going on there. But no, this is a really good song. It kind of realigns, for me, it realigned more of a thrash, a really serious thrash vibe, more so than what the previous track was.
Cool. And you, Billy?
Yeah, like musically, I don't mind it. But I find Stev's really going off the rails on the vocal, like especially towards the end. Like to me, I hear serious like Alice in Chains influence on his vocal. like at the end, right? Like he was listening to Dirt on a couple of these songs. Like it's towards the end, there's some major Alice in Chain influences in there. And even interestingly, my favorite track on the album borrows a lot from Prong Beg to Differ, but I'm jumping ahead. I'll agree with Jim. Like it's got some good thrash parts, some good thrash chug riffs, a really good solo at 220. But yeah, it's just the vocals for me again, and especially when he starts getting into that Alice in Chains, it's just not my style. So it kind of ruined it for me.
It's funny you say that, Billy, because coming up, I've got written an Alice in Chains kind of. It's funny I didn't pick it up on this, but
that he really goes in that direction.
Yeah, it's funny you brought that up.
Yeah, it's a little unusual. Let's just put it that way. His vocal style is a little unusual at times, but I don't know what the point was or if that's the direction he wanted to go in. You don't really hear that so much on the first on Void Terra Firma. His vocals are really good all the way through. There's
there's a lot of experimenting on this album.
Right, yeah. Which is why I think a lot of people were saying it's a progressive album, which
I can see that.
I guess to a point, but this is 92, so fans, I can see that. Yeah, exactly. And this is we've discussed this on many albums by the 90s. Everyone wants to change now. Nobody wants to stay the same. So that's obviously they're doing the same thing in their own way. Maybe not as extreme as say what we covered a couple of weeks back with Death Row, but somewhat going in that direction. All right, so we'll move to track 5, and that is Dead Silence. And Billy, what do you think of this one?
Yeah, so for me, I'm just double checking to make sure this is the case. Yeah, so for me, this is the best song on the album.
Okay.
But for me, I said it before, maybe I jumped the gun, but this to me had like we did Prong Beg to Differ. The whole structure of this song reminds me of like tracks on that album, right?
Okay.
Like very like straightforward, simple choruses, but like real hooky, right? They just catch you and they stay with you, and then like the really big riff hooks and the driving rhythm section. Again, like it's just this whole song is structured like something that would have been on Beg to Differ, and so I think it works. Like I like it, and even he does some melodic singing here, and I don't mind him here. But like it just to me, this is they don't try to put too many different ideas into one song, and it clicks, right? It's the best song on the album. They wrote some good riffs. They have a catchy chorus. They didn't go past 5 minutes. It all just clicked for me on this one. And it gets really thrashy at the end, which
and the solo's not bad actually.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah, I like the solo. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, like this is one of the only albums you get like gang vocals. Like, you got that Dead Silence, and it's more like it's more. This is the best song for me as well. Like, coming out of 4, which I thought was great, but this is a really strong song, and probably the last song on the album, because things start to kind of take a little bit of a twists and turns. Not saying I don't like it after this, but just different. But yeah, it's got probably one of the strongest guitar solos on it, and just a really heavy thrash vibe. I really like this song. One of my favorites, if not my favorite. I agree with you guys.
Do you think that Stev's vocals are very like in an angry kind? He's really angry on it.
Oh yeah,
I got that out of it for me.
Yeah, and I think they should use more backup, like the band members. They should use more of the vocalization with it, because I think that's what's missing from a lot of this album, is like just getting that sort of stronger, angrier sound, and I get that on this for sure.
Yeah, I could see that. It's very, like you said, it's very hooky with the whole chorus, the Dead Silence, and I could. Now that Billy mentioned the whole Prong thing, I could see that. Yeah, I could see a very comparable to a Prong song. Just the structure, it's not very long, but it's catchy, and you get hooked on it really quickly. I could see that. Yeah. Maybe this album needs more songs like that, and not so.
I think so.
Same here.
Go over in every goddamn direction you can think of, All right, so we'll go to track 6, Inside Looking Out. Now this has David White from Heathen. He sings the vocal harmonies with Stev during the chorus. But so that's kind of cool. What do you think of this song, Billy?
Yeah, so for me, things begin to start to fall apart here. Like this
Okay.
is a song. I mean, it's not one of the worst songs on the album, but like vocally, I really don't like it. Like there's like the momentum gets killed on the vocals. Like I know David White's doing vocals, and I love him in his main band, but like he's just lost in here. Um, but yeah, like so take like the they keep going back to like Stev doing this like slow pace, like meandering vocal, like especially that whole section that kicks in at 3.5 minutes. It sounds like one big Alice in Chains, like
Yeah.
a vocal style, big time, and but the guitar solos are still good. But this is an example of I think of a song again that falls in that category of not constructed as well. And that there's a bunch of different ideas that are coming together, and they don't necessarily all fit like they did on the previous song.
Okay, I can see that. And Jim, do you have a
Well,
similar feeling about it?
I'm a big fan of Alice in Chains. This I have written Alice in Chains throughout the whole thing. Now I like it, but it's not a. It kind of doesn't suit the album for me. Now, like Jerry Cantrell's got an album coming out, and his first two singles are really good because I'm an Alice in Chains fan, and it sounds like Alice in Chains. I mean, you know, without Lane, but still, it's got that kind of makeup of the song. So that's good to have Alice in Chains there because, you know, he's a member of Alice in Chains. But here, I'm like, this is supposed to be like coming out of Dead Silence and then going into this. I like it. With my headphones on, I've got really good headphones. It's got that echoey intro effect, which sounded super cool on the headphones, but it feels like definitely a prog thrash direction, and it just doesn't feel like it fits on the album. There's another song that I like a little bit less than this, but I like the Alice in Chains sound on it. If they were putting an album that was kind of from that genre, I guess, if that makes sense. But this is a thrash, you know, to me, it's a thrash band. I think it eases off the thrash end of it in the next few songs, and that kind of bothers me a bit. But I don't mind the song. It's a good song. But yeah, definite Alice in Chains sound to it, 100%.
And both 6 and 7 open with like a mini drum solo.
Yes,
that's right. That's
right. Both of them, right? So it's either cymbals or drums. A lot of the intros.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so track 7, The Chosen. Billy, what do you think of this?
So yeah, I kind of feel somewhat similar. So you know, it opens with that drum solo again. You know, like it's got this mid-pace chug and it works its way to thrash in some parts, and then other parts it's got a heavy grind. So I mean that's good. Like I don't mind that. And I don't mind there's some faster sections where Stev is singing, and I don't mind that. But again, it's kind of I really dislike the vocals in the slow parts because it to me it comes off as a bit whiny, like so opposite of his powerful like voice when he wants to be. So that doesn't work so much for me, but there's some good bass work in here. But again, it's the same thing again, where there's a couple different things going on that just don't come together for me.
Yeah, I could say sludgy. It gets really sludgy.
Yeah, you can't blame it for trying different things. It runs in about 3 different directions through the song, and vocally it runs in a couple different directions too.
Well, what I could say is that this is a precursor to what you would get in Skin Lab. Very similar style, really like kind of thrashy, sludgy, groovy, and then he would sing in this kind of manner where it's like kind of slow song, a slow, like he's just got this vocal, and it goes like in like Cookie Monster kind of growls. So I could see it was a precursor. Maybe this is the direction he wanted to go in.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, it's obvious to me that what he was doing with Skin Lab is you can see it. Like there's elements in some of these songs. At least that's what I've noticed. And what do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I think this one has. I put down that it's got a thick, sludgy vocal groove in parts.
Yeah.
That drum intro, which fades in and out. But it's like I'm not really noticing the drums on a lot of these tracks, even though they're starting many of them out. It's got a wicked riff in it, and that it's a heavy song, a thick song. It's got more of a Chuck Billy sound to it for me for some of the vocal parts. It's I like it better than 6, and I like it better than 8. But that's where I am on that one.
Okay. Well, we'll go to 8 since you brought it up. Power Trip. What do you?
Yeah, this one's probably my least favorite. It makes me sound like it's off a White Zombie album, and I like White Zombie, but again, it's just. And then there's a part of it. I don't know if he's speaking in a megaphone or one of like. It's just. I find it kind of. It's coming out to 90s like. I don't know. Mick Mars' solo album had the lead singer singing, just a few months ago through this kind of distorted thing. That reminded me of that. And I don't like that. It's like, it's so like, okay, you did it great, but it's like, it's maybe a sign of the times. 92. Mick Mars, unfortunately, his lead singer was doing it in 2024, which is the reason why I didn't buy his album. But, it's just got that early 90s kind of, we're heading into, it's got some grunge feel to it, but I get it's huge groove in it. And that's where I get the White Zombie from it. It's got kind of that bouncy kind of, I find White Zombie songs, like I like White Zombie, but I very rarely listen to it just because it's more like, it's kind of like I find it more sing-along, and it has that, Rob Zombie is a great vocalist, but I just find it all kind of sounds the same. That's what I got out of this one. So this would be probably my least favorite on the album.
Yeah, I can see that. I think the opening bit really hurts it. That weird sound effect. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
It just doesn't really work. It just, I don't know. I didn't like it either. What do you think, Billy?
Oh, this is amazing song. No, just kidding. Yeah, no, I'm kind of the same. I don't think there's anything more. Like, it's just not my style. It's not a big fan. Like, just all the vocal work and the chorus, like, just none of it. It just goes right over. Yeah, like, I'm not a fan.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm not that crazy over the song either. I don't really like the whole groove metal thing that's going on here. It doesn't really work for me. All right, so the last song of this album is Promised Afterlife. And Billy, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm going to sound kind of similar again, right? So musically, it's an okay track. Like I don't mind it, but the vocals are really all over the place, right? I mean, here you get like slow ballad, like you get vocal effects. He's like grunge style. He's got thrash, which is good, but it just really just like, especially the vocals at the opening is not. I'm not a fan of, but there's some good like fast guitar stuff going on, but even that, like there's like, especially at the beginning and the end, there's these quick like guitar lines or riffs that just sound out of place. Like it'll just be like just out of nowhere, and it's just an example of how like it could be a good idea, but it just the flow, like it just this vocally the flow kills it, and the musical choices just don't bring the song together, right? Again, we go back to that song we all probably like the most, and I think they do better when they just write like a straightforward like thrash song. And maybe you could say I'm narrow-minded, but I just find when they try to do too many things like this song, it just doesn't all come together in the end.
No, I think you're right. I mean, you're not being narrow-minded. I tend to agree. It's like there are far too many things going on in all the songs for it to be like considered a really good technical proggy album. I mean, like I think Heathen does this the best. They're incredible with the way that their songs are structured and using like technical guitars and everything. But these guys,
this isn't even in the same universe of that. Yeah.
That's true. That's true. But I'm just saying, like, if they're trying that kind of methodology, it doesn't, for some reason. And I think for me overall, I think it's Stev. I think he wanted. I had this feeling based on what Skin Lab's about. That's what he wanted to apply here.
I'm sure this was Stev driving the changes, because vocally he's the biggest change.
That's right. That's right. So I think that automatically that, yeah, okay, Skin Lab, yeah, this is what he wanted to do, and that's where he went, which makes a lot of sense. What do you think, though, Jim? Do you like the song at all? Or?
Yeah, I like the song. It's better than song 8, so it doesn't like I think, you know, it would have been cool if they so I'm hearing this band for the first time, and then I went, so before I finished this album, I listened to the first 2 halfway through, like I said, because I wanted to see, like, when I hit, I think song 6, I was kind of like, okay, where's this go? Or no, it was song 3, I think. Anyways, but I think they should have finish on this song. I like it. It's got that lighter kind of intro. It picks up. It's got a heavy groove. I think it's got a Testament vibe to it again, but not massive thrash. I like it. 2:14, the song slows down into a bit of a solo, and then it sort of speeds up a bit, but it kind of, like Billy said, it's kind of all over the place. I think, you know what, if they were looking at you know, doing a lot of more progressive stuff, I think they should have picked a song 10 off of maybe Queensryche The Warning and did a thrash version of something off that. And it would have been like, oh, okay, cool, you know, like, but I think it loses, like, the song's better than 8, but I think from 7, 8, and 9, it's sort of, I don't know, it just kind of, it removes, it's almost like 2 EPs here. Like, one is more thrashy, and then the other part is more not so thrash. So I kind of get that feeling from it, but I mean, nothing like, really, these couple of songs are nothing like on the first 2 albums. There's nothing like this, on those 2 albums. So way more thrashier. But I mean, I think it finishes it off okay. I don't mind the song. It's good. Better than the number 8. So
yeah, number 8 I don't really care for either. Yeah, it's too bad because I think the first couple songs are pretty decent. So you start off pretty good, and then it just, well, it's funny, when I pitched this album to you guys, I was so, like, kind of jazzed up about it. But then even for me, after I started listening to it again, I'm like, I don't think this album is as good as I thought it was. My memory's like, it's so great. But then
I kept saying, why did Ken pick this one over the first 2?
I don't know, because I it's funny because I remembered this one the most for some reason, but
yeah,
I to be honest with you guys, I think Void Terra Firma would have been a better pick.
Yeah,
I think it's a better thrash album.
I think,
but it's weird. It's just like, I wasn't thinking, and then when I started going through the songs, I'm like, well, this album's actually okay, but I don't think, I agree with you guys. Like, it's just all over the map, and it wants to be too many things, and obviously it's kind of like a precursor to Skin Lab on top of that.
Yeah.
But,
now, you know, I'm going to buy it because it sounded so good on my head, on my system. Sure. I thought the production on it was pretty good. I liked it, I'd love to hear it on a physical copy. Probably be a lot better. So,
yeah, for sure. So that was my thinking, my process going into it. I thought, oh yeah, why not? This sounds great. And then it's like, no, it's actually okay, but everything, I'm echoing all your guys, like both your sentiments about this album. It's like, yeah, it's got some interesting things going on here, but way too much. Like, you look at what Death Row did. I mean, they're the masters of, like, technical thrash, and they do it so well. Here, no, it doesn't really, I don't know. It doesn't work as much. But
I don't even get I mean, musically, there's some technical components, but I don't even get the technical label. Like I could certainly, like, no technical thrash band.
No.
Like, the music doesn't go anywhere near that far. I mean, I always sort of see when this album's talked about, there's the word technical thrown in. I never quite got that.
Yeah, maybe more prog.
Like, yeah, that would be
proggy elements, maybe. But you're right. I mean, I was reading a lot about the album on the weekend too, and it's like, oh, everyone, no, technical this, technical that, but is it really?
Yeah, I mean, there's some technical riffs there. You know, there's some bass riffs that sort of get you there, but certainly nothing to get you even close to, like, a Death Row or a Toxic or a Realm or any of that technical stuff.
Yeah, and I still think it kind of suffers from, like, thin production with the guitars. They're not as immediate as, say, like, when you listen to Victims of Deception from Heathen, like, those guitars just rip.
Oh yeah,
they're so great. But here they're wanting to do that, but I somehow feel that it doesn't really reach that level or that level of perfection. But
I mean, you're comparing an album that's like an 11 out of 10 to something that's like a 5.5 out of 10.
Sure. You're right. It's probably not. It's probably not the best comparison.
Yeah,
that's fair. I was just lumping them in because I just hear I do hear elements of Heathen in this album, and I just, because they're kind of all like from the same kind of brotherhood and stuff like that, I just kind of naturally associate that. But you're right. There isn't really much for comparison when you think about it. All right, guys, do you have any final thoughts on the album before we move on to our last segment of the evening?
No, I think we nailed it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Billy suggested a top 10 of thrash albums from a limited period. So we're looking from 1995 to 2000 to come up with what albums came out that 5-year span. So it was an interesting. I mean, I had to think about it too for a while, because there was a lot of bands that were coming out. We're like, oh yeah, like Creator and Sodom and Anthrax and Testament. And it's like, not a lot of really good stuff. But I guess we'll find out what everyone thinks, what they found. Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
I don't mind. Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Go for it, Jim.
Okay, cool. So I'll zip through mine here. I got some good stuff. And so, yeah, like there's Anthrax and that on there, but it's like when you're looking at it, you're either picking the band or for me, I was like, I got to pick an album that I really like. So I stuck with also the first number 10 for me would be Annihilator, Refresh the Demon. I kind of like that 1996 album. The title track's pretty good. Voices and Virtue is really, really good on it too. That I like probably about 80% of the album. At that point, I think there was another one that came out just after that, but this, in my mind, is the better album. Number 9 for me, it's kind of a funny one, but Tankard, Kings of Beer from 2000. Yeah. I like this album, and I like Hellbent for Jesus is a pretty good song. This is a fun album, but I really like the cover for Damage Incorporated by Metallica on it. It's not bad, but it's kind of a fun album. I like it, and kind of a bit of a guilty pleasure there. Number 8, Sepultura, Roots. Don't really need to say much about that. A great album. Probably out of their catalog, probably my least favorite of that era, but still it was so commercially successful for them. I mean, Roots is probably one they probably still sing. I mean, you guys have seen them, I guess, lately. They probably still, that's one of the songs they still sing now. Yeah. So, I mean, you can't argue with that. Number 7, this is a guilty pleasure of mine. I know I'll probably get a lot of pushback from people out there, but I like the Slayer album, Diabolus in Musica. I like it. Yeah. I think it's a good album. Now, I know this is probably on a lot of people's Slayer catalogs ranked last or second last or third last, but I mean, Bitter Peace is a wicked song. Stain of Mind, Death's Head. There's some good stuff on here. Screaming in the Sky. It's definitely not Slayer, but I still like it. Number 6, jump over to Canada. One of my favorite bands, Voivod with Phobos, 1997. E-Force singing on this. So Eric Forrest. The Rise is probably one of the best songs, and probably could even be in my top 20 Voivod songs. Maybe even in my top 10 if I really break it down. The Tower's a good song on that one. Love that album. The album art on on all Voivod albums are wicked. Number 5, I'm going to go with Necroshine from 1999 for Overkill. The title track's pretty good. I mean, it's a good, solid thrash album for me. Revelation's a good song on it. Number 4, I'm going to zip over across the pond to Sodom, Code Red. I really like Tombstone off that one, and the title Code Red's a wicked 1999 release. I think it's a great album. Okay, I mixed up my ones here. So number 3, I'm going to go with Zentrix, Scourge, 1996. this is kind of an interesting pick because it's kind of out of their catalog, probably the least thrashiest. And here we were just talking about more of a groove metal album to some degree, and parts of it I didn't like because of that. But I kind of like this one. I like the album art's so cool on it. It's got I like it. 13 Years on it's a good song, and it's kind of a little bit of a step outside what they normally have, but I really, really like it. My number 2 is Negatron by Voivod, so I threw 2 Voivods on here. And the other Eric Forrest release, Nano Man, is another one of my favorite songs, and I got to see him do it here when Eric Forrest came here last year as E-Force. And Insect is a great song on it. There's not a bad song on this album. I really like it, and it's got a giant mechanical ant on the cover, so that's pretty cool. And my number 1, Testament: The Gathering. I mean, we talked about this album. It's probably, I think I picked this as my top 2 or top 3 Testament albums. I think The New Order was first. I think I even pushed this ahead of Practice, and I pushed it ahead of The Legacy, or maybe just after The Legacy. Anyways, it's my favorite album in that 5-year period. I mean, what do you say about it? It's like a return to form, and the one they did before this, which I really like too, and I was going to put it on here, but it's more of a death metal album. So anyways, I went with the Gathering. So those are my picks. My honorable mention, I had like a Children of Bodom album on here. Where is it? Something Wild from '97. That was a good album.
Yeah.
I liked that one. I thought that was pretty good. What else did I have on there? And I liked the Creator one too, Masquerade. It was okay, but not kind of hit my top 10. So, but the Children of Bodom could have gone in there, but I was looking for more. I wanted to keep it kind of more thrash. Maybe Children of Bodom isn't 100% thrash. I wanted to kind of go more thrash, but that was my favorite, one of my favorite Children of Bodom albums. And that's what I got, guys.
Cool. And Billy, how about yourself? What's your list?
Hey, yeah, so we definitely have more overlap than I thought we would. So my number 10 was on Jim's list, but not quite as high. Voivod Negatron from 1995. So that just squeezed in. So we were doing 95 to 2000.
Yeah.
So art-wise, this is my favorite artwork for Voivod. Like, I love that dark red and then the mechanical ant, as Jim said. This album's pretty significant because it's the first without Snake, right? So this is the transition to Eric. So I like Eric's vocals. There's a few industrial influence a bit on the album, which is not my favorite, but still overall, I still very much enjoy the album. Number 9, Annihilator, Refresh the Demon, from 1996. That's funny. Like, Annihilator, in my opinion, some of their best work is the 90s. So Neverland, King of the Kill, Refresh the Demon, and Criteria for a Black Widow. Like, one of these are going to come back again and much higher on my list. But I think Annihilator did pretty well in the 90s. And Refresh the Demon is, I guess, negative is it's Jeff on vocals. But so be it. Like, he tries his best. Number 8 from 1997. So this is, I'm going Sadist, Elements of Anger. So this album's a little more thrashy. It's not as intense as Swallowed in Black. Like, it's toned down a little bit, but still very much on the technical side. And Steve DiGiorgio's killer bass riffs are all over the damn place. So that gets it for me. Number 7, we talked about this before. It's it's Destruction, All Hell Breaks Loose in 2000. So this is coming off the complete disaster of a Cannonball album. So the comeback will really be complete the following year with the price, but
that's right.
that of course fell out in 2000. So it was a year out. Number 6 for me is, I think when we covered Overkill before, I was the only one who liked this album out of the three of us, but 1996, The Killing Kind. This album gets, I find, a lot of hate. Like, people generally, I know there's some groove components, but like there's just so many amazing songs. I think I like every song but 2 on the album. So for me, I remember in my ranking, it was like up in my top 6 or something. So number 5 is an excellent thrash album, going back to Annihilator. So this is my favorite from the 90s, 1999, Criteria for a Black Widow. And this is with Randy Rampage coming back, who, of course, is the vocalist on Alice in Hell. So I love this album. It's probably I prefer it over Never Neverland, actually.
Wow.
So I know I'm in the minority there, but Cobra and Fire was a little too nice vocal wise for Annihilator, I always thought. But then here's an album that I think we talked about some comebacks today with Defiance. This is one that I thought was very good. 1998 Whiplash. Flashback. So I think it's incredibly underrated. I think it didn't get a lot of attention. Again, it didn't help that it was 1998, but they didn't follow any trends. This was just like a thrash monster. So yeah, I think it's really great. And it was the trio of Tonys, 3 people only, and they were all named Tony. So that's kind of cool. Number 3, I don't know if this is thrash or not, but I went the 1995 self-titled album from Nevermore.
Oh yeah, I guess good album.
I don't know if some people say it's not thrash, but I don't know what you call this thing. But this is actually my favorite Nevermore album. I know they got even more progressive through time. But this is like it's my favorite singer, Worrell Dane, rest in peace, Worrell. But yeah, this is my favorite of the band. In all honesty, it's probably my favorite of Nevermore because it sounds most like which I actually like more than Evermore. So yeah, that's Nevermore. Number 2, Jim had my next 2. Jim had number 2's Testament to Gathering from 1999. So again, we already talked about that to death, but what a great lineup though, right? James Murphy, Steve Giorgio, and Dave Lombardo. So that's all you need to say there. And my number 1 was Sodom, Code Red, which was a bit of a comeback album too. It's like a monster thrash record. It's sort of, there were 2 or 3 average albums kind of at best before this, so this was pretty good. And yeah, it kind of started a trend, right? Like from this album on, they really hit their stride. So that's my top 10.
Cool. Okay. Well, we match a few. For some reason, Sweden is my destination for this list. A lot of bands from Sweden. I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Sweden, okay.
But number 10, I'm going to the year 2000 from Japan. It's not a very well-known band. This is Grim Force. They put an album out called Circulation to Conclusion. Great, wicked thrash, Japanese thrash. I wish they had more albums. Apparently, they put this band on hold in 2015, so I'm not too sure where they're going with it. I love the album cover. It's such a great album, but that's something to, if you're interested in that kind of style of thrash, look it out. It's pretty vicious. Number 9, I have Deadhead, Kill Division from 1999 from the Netherlands. A band that I really like. They don't really get a lot of people talking about them. I mean, technically it's thrash, but the vocals maybe tend to veer on the more death side. But if you're looking for a band with like a lot of energy and a lot of vicious songs, check those guys out. Number 8, I've talked about this band before, and I know Jim and I did a podcast on another show. Freddy Krueger Underwear. This is their first album, Metal Thrashing Mad, from 1999. I love this album. It's such a great kind of party horror metal thrash album.
Cool band.
It's a great band. Their first album is awesome. I love that. Love that album. And I'll tie that into the next band, which is Anthrax. So I did put Stomp 442 from 95. I do like this album. I was thinking about it and like, yeah, the 90s is an odd period for Anthrax, but I always like this album. I like the heaviness of the songs. I think it's a decent follow up, from the previous album. So I mean, I'll go with it. And next on the list, I have another band from Sweden. This is Raise Hell, from 1998. They put a first album out called Holy Target, thrash, but with maybe just kind of more leaning towards death vocals. But clearly, if you want to look into that style of thrash, check those guys out too. They've got a bunch of albums out. Pretty solid first debut album for me. And then next after that, I have Ritual Carnage. I've talked about Ritual Carnage before. Another great band from Japan, Vicious Thrash. This is from 1998, The Highest Law. Great album cover, great band. Unfortunately, they're kind of on hold. Again, I don't know why, but it just kind of sucks. And then from there, we'll go into my last one, the top four. So I have Haunted at number 4 from 1998. I love this band. I think this band's fantastic, from Sweden. This is basically the Boiler Brothers who left At the Gates to form this kind of thrash band with a slight, I guess, veer into death metal vocals. But this band, I've always liked them a lot. Such a great band. Number 3, I'm going what you guys suggested about Sodom, Code Red in 1999. Great album. I really like this album quite a bit. And then number 2, another Swedish band that I talked about, and I love this band, Darkane. This is the same singer from Freddy Krueger Underwear. Their first album, Rusted Angel, is a masterpiece. If you want to hear some really great, like, kind of death thrash, this album is worth it. It's a fantastic album. And number 1 for me, I'll agree with you guys about Testament, The Gathering. Probably the best album of the 90s.
Yeah.
For any thrash band, I would think. So that's my list.
Great.
That's my list.
Oh.
It's a little bit different from you guys, but
hey, different is good.
Well, sometimes I feel like some of these other bands don't get a lot of love, or nobody talks about them. Like, you don't. I don't hear anyone talking about Darkane or even Raise Hell. Never heard anyone ever talking about them.
Yeah.
You know.
Cool.
I see a lot of people posting Darkane quite a bit, like on
you, yeah.
All the metal like vinyl collectors who follow each other, they're pretty common.
Okay, all right. I just don't see a lot on them. It's funny. It was just announced that the vocalist has left Darkane. He's moving on to I guess continue Freddy Krueger Underwear. So they just announced that they've lost him, which is too bad. But it is what it is. But yeah, it's a hard time. Like 1995 to 2000. Like, really, when you think about it, there isn't really a lot of like top tier thrash albums unless you go to more of the obscure stuff.
Like if you did 90 to just even 90 to 91, I could have did like a top 100.
Yeah.
But then once you get up to 95, it's really hard.
Well, I wanted to put in Control Denied, but it's not a thrash album. So I was like, man, no, I can't do that.
That's a good album, though.
Yeah, it is a great album.
Yeah, I like it.
I have no problem with that album at all. I'm good with it.
Yeah.
And like I find the 90s was amazing for metal, just not thrash metal. Right? It's the death metal, the power metal, it's the progressive metal. There were so many good forms of metal that were thriving, especially in Europe, right? Like but the thrash, it wasn't their time.
No.
Well, there were some good bands though. If you go to I don't know if you guys like Artillery Back. That's a pretty solid album for me. It's pretty decent. You ever heard of a band called Dark Order? They're from, I believe they're from Australia. Check out this album, 5,000 Years of Violence in 1998. That's a really good album. It's pretty solid stuff. Or there's another band that I think is kind of, we didn't even mention DRI because they had Full Speed Ahead in 95.
Yeah. I had it on my list, but it just fell off my top.
Yeah, it fell off.
Yeah,
I had Sod on mine too, like Bigger Than the Devil.
Yeah,
I was gonna put that on there, and I ended up going with Anthrax instead. But I was thinking about what, Anthrax or Sod, but I went with Anthrax. But
I also had The Haunted on there, and
you
it
did,
fell
yeah.
off,
You like that album, Billy?
Yeah, there were two of them, I think, that were pretty good, like a year or two apart, right? The self-titled and The Haunted Made Me Do It or something.
The Haunted Made Me Do It, yeah.
Yeah.
That's when they had the other vocalist before they switched to what's his face.
Oh yeah.
From Night Rage. But
I always both on CD, yeah.
Yeah, on the CD? Cool. I think they're a good band. I always like them. It's just like going from death metal to thrash. It's just so weird. Like you put out this incredible death metal album and then suddenly you're doing a thrash metal. It's just bizarre.
Cool.
All right, boys. Does anyone have any final thoughts before we close it out?
No,
I'm all good.
All good. Okay. So next week, Billy will be back in the captain's chair, and he's picking Zentrix from the UK, and we'll be doing Shattered Existence, their debut album from 1989, which should be cool. I haven't heard that album in a long time.
Yeah, great pick.
I still listen to Zentrix, all the albums regularly. One of my favorite bands.
You like the last two, don't you, Billy?
I do.
Yeah, the last two are great. Yeah, especially the last one. Yeah.
Okay. Different vocalist, but
different vocalist, but it still has that Zentrix sound.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of good UK bands that we still have to start talking about at some point.
Yeah, and we'll do like for top 10, we'll do like our top 10 UK.
Nice.
That's great.
That'd be a good intro to it.
For sure.
Like I would say, UK thrash is not to go off, but UK thrash probably never got the respect it deserved.
No.
Like it was always played second-class citizen to the American or German thrash, right? So it's a shame. But yeah, some great stuff.
There's a lot of like Lawnmower Death.
Lawnmower Death.
Yeah, they're good.
They're kind of cool. I think they're fun. Like there's a lot of like one-off or like two album, like the Germans, like a one-off or 1 or 2 album UK band. There's so many of that.
Yeah,
you're right. That's I mean, even with Evil now, like they're playing music, but it's great that there's so many bands from the past that we could bring up, like in a podcast. Cool. All right, guys. So I guess we'll sign off for the night, and we'll see you all next week.
All right. Good night.
Good night.